Good morning and welcome to our Journyx Project Execute webinar today. Our webinar today is entitled The Top 5 Ways to Alleviate the Chaos of Managing Multiple Projects. Our special guest presenter today is Dan Vickers, who's a PMP, has lots of experience in this area. We're pleased to have him as our speaker today. He's going to present us with some really good information that will help us as project managers to what I like to call juggle more efficiently. We'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today, and we've slated this for 30 minutes, and so we'll promise to have you back working productively right at that timeline. A couple of simple housekeeping items. First, you'll be receiving a half PDU for attendance at today's webinar. All you need to do is just respond to the follow-up email that we'll send out either at the end of the day today or first thing on Monday. And then we'll process those certificates and get those out to you guys within 3 to 5 days. Finally, you're going to be able to submit questions online anytime during our presentation today using the Questions tab. I would encourage you, as Dan goes through the presentation today, if some questions pop up in your head, go ahead and type those into the Questions tab, send them across. I'll compile them, and then we'll be reading those at the end of Dan's presentation. Our agenda is quite straightforward. First, Dan Vickers, as I mentioned, will take us through the presentation today, and then we'll begin responding to your submitted questions using the Q&A tab. So without further ado, let me hand over the reins to Dan.
Thank you, James. Well, welcome everyone to Managing Multiple Projects. I'm honored to have you here to learn with me about managing multiple projects simultaneously. I look forward to sharing my thoughts with you. At the end of our session, as James mentioned, we will have a question and answer time so that we can all learn from each other. Now, if you're managing multiple projects each week, let's say 10, then you could have 10 or more separate task lists to maintain. Identifying your tasks, the person responsible, due dates, notes, priorities. You'd have 20 or more conference calls because you got internal calls with your team and external calls with the client each week. You could have 20 or more meeting agendas to prepare. 20 or more sets of notes of meetings to document, 10 or more project schedules to maintain, doing resourcing and forecasting in your work breakdown structure, 10 or more risk management plans to maintain, which are time-consuming because they require research and planning, and 10 or more PMO updates. People want to know how your projects are going, and you need time to prepare for those calls. And finally, after your project's closed, you will end up with more 20 or so project closure meetings so that need to be held and documented. So you can see that the magnitude of work needed for just 10 projects can really grow. What happens when you have 20 projects or 30 or more? Today, we will discuss ways to alleviate the chaos of managing multiple projects. Short background, I have worked with numerous clients in multiple industries, including banking, insurance, staffing, and manufacturing. I began in formal project management over 13 years ago, became certified as a PMP in 2003, and I've led hundreds of projects from start to finish. I work in a fast-moving, multi-client, multi-team environment, delivering risk management software solutions to corporate clients across the U.S. Managing multiple projects simultaneously and usually effectively has been my way of life for the past 8 years. I welcome the opportunity to share with you practices that I have learned and implemented. So today's objectives, we'll talk about managing information. How many of you can quickly provide the history on your projects or provide a current status on your projects? Managing meetings. Too many meetings, not enough time. How many unproductive, tedious meetings do you have each week? Managing priorities. How many of you have no idea of the most important things that need to be done each day or where you need to start? Your teams. How many of you don't know if a team member has completed a task or not? How do you find out? My favorite topic, personal development yourself, how many of you realize that you are the most valuable resource on your projects? To get an idea of your work environment, let's take a quick poll if you don't mind, and I'd like to know how many projects are you currently juggling? James, if you can put that up for us, please.
There we go. We've got the poll up. We'll just take a few seconds here, allow you to select the right option, and then we'll present the findings to everyone.
So as you're doing that, we're going to look today at this during our session to try and bring some structure to your plans for leading multiple projects. All right, if everybody's got their poll answered, James, can you kind of give me some feedback?
Sure can, Dan. It looks like we've got 61% of our attendees today are managing 1 to 5 projects, 21% are managing 6 to 10, 15% are managing 11 to 15, and then we've got a small percentage, 3%, are managing more than 20 projects, Dan.
That is terrific. So you can see from the spectrum of projects that we work with that we all work with a lot of projects, because your 4 or 5 projects may be so complex that it would be the work equivalent of handling 20 small projects. So I appreciate you guys doing that. Let's move on to information management. Give me just a sec. Here we go. Keeping personal project logs. Personal project logs for me, for internal and external projects, is my way of keeping up with the mass of information that accumulates for each project. In my project logs, I enter my tasks that need to be followed up on. So I set reminders for when to follow up on these tasks, and these are tasks that wouldn't be in your task list or in your project schedule, such as return a phone call, follow up on an email, complete a project report, and we put who, what, when, where, and why. Posting recaps. This requires discipline and practice to update the log after every communication. It is helpful to have all this information in one place. You will be able to impress a colleague by telling them the date and time of what they said 2 weeks ago regarding a particular task. It will increase their confidence in your leadership. Highlight decision points in your project log and write them in a little bit more narrative style. Review these with your team periodically so that everyone remembers how you arrived where you are now. How many of you know that a team member's memory changes over time? How many of you have heard the question, why did you do it this way? So the key is that we want to defend against armchair quarterbacking from those who want to challenge your work. Now let's look at the log in detail. So here's a sample project log. You'll notice there's a date stamp, a time stamp, I've got the issue listed, who's involved, any calls made, and the resolution. So what I do, and I do use Microsoft Outlook. In Microsoft Outlook, I set up reminders on these tasks so that I know when to follow up. For instance, if I need to follow up on a task, I make an entry, I highlight it, sometimes use bold and red, and I set my reminder. When the reminder pops up, I open it, check the reminder, and then follow up on the task. If there is no update, then I just reset the reminder to follow up at a later time. These are tasks, again, that wouldn't normally be in my task list or in my project schedule. Now, if you use this method, you will have project logs for each of your clients. In addition to these, I keep project logs for my internal projects too. Once you get used to this method, updating the logs becomes easier. And then they go with you because they are online or on your PC. You don't have to feel the panic of sorting through your memory bank or searching through piles of notes on your desk for this information. You don't have to remember where the data is because now you know where it is. Meeting management. I like this picture on this slide. You can read through it while I speak. When managing multiple projects, we have numerous internal and external calls, meetings, conversations. We don't have enough time in our days to have calls or meetings that are unnecessarily long and unproductive. In addition to just being on the calls, you're many times leading these calls. You need to prepare an agenda. You got to set up the meetings. You got to remind stakeholders about the meetings, prepare the notes afterwards, and get the status reports updated based on the meetings. Status calls are needed to review the status on the project deliverables, review the status on the large task, and review the project timeline. Status calls can occasionally be used to determine details on part of a project if all agree to spend the time that way, and it's the only time that you can get your stakeholders needed on one call. This is the exception, not the rule. You must exercise control over the time spent in a meeting or on a conference call. Don't be afraid in a meeting early once you have the information that you need. As a project manager, you don't have to be involved on every call on your project. Delegate, trust, watch your teammates grow. If you're the designated project hero by default for all of your projects, or if you take on this role, then you're doing yourself and the project a disservice. You will find peace of mind when you learn to delegate these calls and then trust your teammates to provide you with the information needed. If you are the note taker on a call, let them know this in between topics and that you are making some notes. They will be glad to know that someone is making the effort to keep these notes. Some project managers will keep notes online so all can see and agree with them as they're being completed. And then you want to distribute the notes quickly. The client will appreciate it. It'll be one less task you have to do the following day, and it's easier to complete the notes while these conversations are still fresh in your mind. The key is to follow these steps. Successful meetings are short as possible, clear in intent, and promote engagement with all stakeholders. Follow these steps, and you will learn, your stakeholders will learn, that your meetings have purpose. They will attend, they will contribute, and they will look forward to your next status meeting knowing that they are going to receive quality information and that their time will not be wasted. Sometimes I feel like this guy. Do you have a job description or a balanced scorecard for your position? If you do, then study it and work towards fulfilling every requirement. Are you in a position to influence revenue based on project completion? Then focus on delivering projects. Do your best not to get sidetracked. Impact the bottom line, and you will have the support you need to defend your position. Review your project logs each week to determine your top tasks for each project and manage to these top priority tasks. You can't fix everything. Set yourself free from the hero complex and learn to delegate. Is your time spent on managing the completion of a deliverable or on updating an RC chart that no one may ever read? There is administrative work for every project and lots of it. Find a quick way to complete your administrative task and focus your talents on managing the completion of deliverables. At the end of the day, the amount of revenue you help to realize will have more of an impact than non-revenue generating opportunities. Your job is about the business and the bottom line, stakeholders and shareholders. Your schedule is your time. Set up your schedule so that you are focusing on top priority items. If you spend significant time working on non-priority items, then don't expect anyone to be impressed. There's a concept, I didn't come up with it, there's been lots of publications regarding this topic, but I have put this in my own words. Outside in versus inside out. You can choose to either let your projects drive your daily schedule, or you can choose to take control of your projects and determine the work that can be done based on your schedule. Manage. Managing to your top 2 or 3 tasks for each project is a concept from Neil Witten. He is the author of No Nonsense Advice for Successful Projects. I attended his training a few years ago. This is a wonderful idea. I like it. It works, and I recommend that you try it. So what you do is you list the top 2 or 3 tasks for each project, and then you focus on these each week and then manage to these tasks. If you have numerous projects, then the number of these tasks will add up quickly. At this point, you'll need to prioritize tasks across projects and focus on completing the high priority tasks first. There is a movie that came out a few years ago called The Incredibles that many of you may be familiar with. I borrowed this line. It's actually a play on the line from the movie. If you remember, Buddy had wanted to be a superhero, and he discussed this with Mr. Incredible, and Mr. Incredible kind of dismissed him. So as Buddy got older, he decided that his evil plan was to turn everyone into a superhero, because his line was, if everyone is a superhero, then no one is a superhero. Well, I'll borrow from that line and put this in here, because I think it is very true. If everything is a priority, then absolutely nothing is a priority. Focus and discipline are the key to addressing your priorities each week. As a project leader, you are responsible for the performance of your team. You get to guide them and motivate them. Every project has a return on investment. Help your team to understand how the project's success will affect the bottom line. Recognition for a job well done is a great motivator. Help them to find success in their daily task. The goal is to have the right person on the right job at the right time. This may not always be the best person, but it should be the right person. Determine if your team members need assistance to complete their task. If a team member cannot complete their task on time, then determine if the reason is schedule-related or skill-related. Work with their manager to prioritize their projects or find another resource to help out. Ask your team members for potential scheduling conflicts or if they have time out of office scheduled. Build contingencies for this into your project schedules. Verify that your team members have completed their assigned tasks. Have another team member or their manager validate it that the task was completed correctly, and be very careful before you indicate to a client that a task was completed if the work hasn't been verified. This happened to me once before. The client found the issue before I did, and I was greatly embarrassed. Teams achieve more when they are able to be part of the process. Build their self-worth by learning how to pronounce their names. Respect their time. Respect the time they need to devote to their other projects by making good use of their time. Everyone likes to feel appreciated and respected. Build their self-worth and watch your projects soar. Team members want to know how they stack up. Tell them how they're doing. Let them know about areas where you think they can improve. Motivate them to do and perform their best. And the key is you are the project leader. You are empowered to make any changes to the project culture that are needed. And my favorite topic, personal development. Nothing on any project is more important than building your own skills. You are the most valuable member on your team. If you are not prepared for leading and managing a project, then you will be frustrated, overworked, and tense. If you are a prepared professional, then you will be cool, calm, and in control like this guy on the surfboard. Build your skills. Develop your skills in project management, risk management, relationship management. Schedule time for yourself, an hour a week and 15-minute intervals if needed. There are several online project management resource sites. Build a library of these resource materials, textbooks, journals, webinars. Attend these webinars. Organize your tasks. Read professional journals and build your skills. I commend you today for attending these webinars hosted here at Journyx. And then set goals for yourself. Determine your professional development goals. Determine the certifications you need to advance in your career. To a large degree, you define your own future. If you don't know where you want to be in 3 to 5 years, then take time to find out. Decide now to map out your goals. Practice continuous improvement with yourself. You are your most important resource. You have immense value. Focus on your goals and find a way to solve your company's needs in your area of influence. Be a project leader, not just a project manager. Provide ideas to your organization. Develop your own vision statement and mission statement. Determine ways that you can help your company become better. For now, you and your company are one. If you improve, then your company improves. As a review, keep personal project logs for each project. Keep your calls and meetings short. Discuss what is necessary and delegate the rest. Spend time on what is important and profitable. Trust your team members, but verify their work. And to me, the most important one is invest in yourself. Keys to remember: show kindness and respect to all. Exercise focus and discipline at all times. For me, it comes down to self-management. When you learn to manage yourself better, time management, task management, then you will be better positioned to manage your projects. Well, thank you for your time. May all your projects and relationships be successful. And James, with that, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Dan. I think all of us found a couple of tidbits there. That's felt kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You had a lot of suggestions. Probably behoove folks to grab a hold of just a couple of them and put them into practice as they try to, as I like to call it, juggle effectively, being a juggler myself. Well, we're at the time where we're going to be responding to your questions and answers. We've got some folks that have already begun submitting questions. I would encourage you to go over to the questions tab and type in your questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to jump right on in and get to as many of these as we can, Dan. Our first one comes from Steve. Steve says, you seem to focus on organizations as being a key to success in managing multiple projects. I need to find a starting point. What do you suggest is the best starting point for organizing my work?
Well, Steve, I appreciate the question. It's a very good question. I suggest that the best starting point is with your schedule. Put time on your calendar to spend organizing your schedule. Once you get some time freed up, then I would focus on the area that needs the most attention. This could be your email, could be desk clutter, it could be paperwork, but I would focus on those areas first.
That's good information. Elaine has an interesting question. She says, how can one manage this level of work when they may be the only PM on the team? Kind of that, what I like to call the PMO of one. What's the best way for Elaine to be able to manage that, Dan?
Well, Elaine, that's difficult, but you have to find a way, I think, in order to prioritize your tasks across those projects. Hopefully you have some others on your teams to assist you. Hopefully you have some others who are ready or planning to move up into a project management role, and this would be a great opportunity to train them to do things in an efficient and organized way. So, you know, organizing your work is going to be the key, but I know sometimes that is easier said than done, but I would certainly make that my focus. And then, of course, encourage your senior management to get you some assistance.
Thanks, Dan. Our next question comes in from Randy. Randy says, you talked about the importance of team management. If I'm leading a project, shouldn't everyone do just what I say?
Well, Randy, that's a good question, and the short answer would be, could be yes, but really it comes down to having good relationships, because good relationships are critical to project success. Persuade your team members to take ownership for their tasks and set some ground rules and get their buy-in, and then you'll see that they're willing, they're wanting to do what you say or do what you say needs to be done, because now they're part of that process.
Good feedback there, Dan. We've got a couple more minutes and some more questions coming through, so let's continue to press on. Next question comes in from Russell. Russell says, we don't have a good set of best practices. Where can I find some good resource material for developing these?
Well, Russell, excellent question. I would start with visiting the PMI website, and I would begin to attend your local PMI chapter meetings. In addition, I'm going to provide you with a list of resource links after today's presentation. Journyx is another excellent site for gathering some of this information.
Great. And I think you, the last time we did this presentation, Dan, you had a whole bunch of resources that were valuable, and if I'm not mistaken, we'll go ahead and get those out to the folks that are attending today and give them some links to some different publications and some websites that might help them out.
Yes.
So a question comes in from Anne. She says, you may have heard of the triple constraint. I'm struggling with, see, I'm trying to read her question here. She's struggling with balancing the triple constraint of time, cost, and quality, and she's wondering, how do you determine which of those triple constraints do you have to give up on?
Well, I would say that the one that you don't give up on, Ann, is quality. Now, of course, there's going to be other factors involved with time frames and with the cost, what's been allocated for a particular project, or what's been committed to a client or to a group of stakeholders about a project. But to me, quality trumps them all. So that would be my focus.
Okay, good feedback, Dan. Next question comes in from Jennifer. Jennifer asks a question. She says, how do you build respect for the project manager role with internal stakeholders? My experience is that many from other groups see the PM role strictly as an admin role.
Well, Jennifer, excellent question. To me, you build respect by being competent and being confident. So you build competence, right, by learning your own processes, learning your product or the deliverables that you're providing. So know those well, and then because you have that information and now you are somewhat of a knowledge expert, you have that confidence that people will be drawn to you. They will respect your knowledge. And so I would start there, but competence and confidence will help gain you that respect.
Thanks, Dan. Well, we've got about a minute left. I think we'll have time for one more question. Dan, you can forward the slide. We'll jump into this last question. I would encourage you to continue to submit your questions, because those that we don't get to, Dan will be glad to respond to those individually electronically when the presentation is completed and we have your email addresses. So our last question, Dan, comes in from Marie. Marie says, I feel like I have a lot of responsibility but very little authority. How do I get the authority I need to successfully manage these projects?
Well, Marie, that is an excellent question, and I'll be doing an entire presentation on this later this month here on the Journyx website. But primarily, you need to assume the authority for yourself. So now, depending on your personality type, this may be a difficult task, but your personal knowledge will increase your authoritative voice. And so you can kind of take this mantle on and project that authority. But if you can, join me later this month, and we'll discuss this topic in more detail.
Great, Dan. I appreciate that plug. Well, we've come to the end of our time, but there are some more questions still coming through. I want to thank Dan for spending time with us today. Journyx is sponsoring this webinar series. We actually have a software solution that helps you to optimize your resources across multiple projects and track project schedules and really know what people are doing. If you're interested, we've got our website there on the screen. Happy to give you some information on what we provide for project managers. As well, we have a series of webinars this semester that we're offering with experts like Dan, who will be talking on various groups of topics. Topics like Agile is not the only way for software projects to be done, how to turn around failed projects, the PMO, strategy, discipline, and execution. Those are a couple of examples. Dan actually alluded to one that he's going to be doing later this month about how to acquire and obtain the authority that you need in a project role environment. So I would encourage you to visit our website. The upper right-hand corner is the word webinars, and look at the other webinars that are available. We're offering PDUs for those, and I think there's an opportunity for you to sit down with an expert in these areas and really glean some information that will help you to be more successful as a project manager. Again, Dan and I want to thank you for spending time with us today. We recognize that your time is valuable, and we certainly appreciate you investing that with us and in yourself in personal development, as Dan mentioned. We want to wish you a great day today and remind you not to just plan, but execute your projects. Everyone have a wonderful day today.